The Federal Housing Finance Association has extended their eviction moratorium until September. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an article for you today about the Federal Housing Finance Association and how they've extended their eviction moratorium. But before I get into this article, please hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already, and maybe leave a comment down below, and I'll keep working to bring you great articles about the eviction moratorium and news that's of interest to landlords. And I really do appreciate all of the great comments and all the likes and all the new subscribers. So I'm going to keep working to bring you great articles. All right, this article comes from globestreet.com and it says, FHFA extends eviction moratorium to September. And this is different than the CDC eviction moratorium, okay? The FHFA moratorium, basically, it was put into place for houses that had gone into forbearance. You couldn't evict anyone from, or houses or properties that were in forbearance. You couldn't evict anyone from those properties. So let's read more about it here. The Federal Housing Finance Association extended the eviction moratorium until September for Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac-backed multifamily properties that had sought forbearance during the pandemic. The moratorium had previously been set to expire at the end of June. While COVID-19 cases are declining and many homeowners continue to emerge from forbearance, many renters who are unable to benefit from rising home prices have not financially recovered from the pandemic, said Director Mark Calabria in prepared remarks. To help those families still struggling to pay their rent and to help multifamily property owners maintain their properties, FHFA is extending the multifamily COVID-19 forbearance and tenant protections through the end of September 2021. Okay, so the FHFA moratorium was put into place basically so that multifamily operators who weren't getting paid rent and wouldn't be able to make their mortgages, they would be able to ask for forbearance from their lenders, and is backed by the federal government. And the only stipulation being that you would be unable to evict any of your tenants who also were covered by this eviction moratorium, okay? So they thought this would help keep some tenants inside their properties. And, I do believe that if you are getting forbearance and the federal government is backing you, then maybe the eviction moratorium is a good thing in that case. But the reason I even bring this article up is because I believe that this is a sign of what's going to happen with the CDC eviction moratorium. So the FHFA is a different branch of the federal government, and they're extending their moratorium until September. So I believe the Biden administration is also going to try to extend the CDC moratorium at least until September. They want all of these programs to kind of match up and have the same end date. They don't want to have things ending at one time with one agency and ending at another time with another agency. So yeah, I believe that this is a sign of exactly what's going to happen in the future. Parsing Calabria's remarks, one might extrapolate that the Center for Disease Control and Prevention's eviction moratorium, which is also set to expire at the end of June, could be next in line for an extension. The CDC has already extended the moratorium multiple times. In addition, renters' assistance has barely begun to be distributed by state agencies, which could prompt the Biden administration to extend it again. Yeah, that's exactly what I just said. Last month, federal judge Dabney Friedrich of the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia struck down the CDC moratorium on evictions. The judge ruled that the administration had exceeded its authority with the moratorium through its use of the Public Health Service Act of 1944. But last week, the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals ruled to leave a federal prohibition on evictions intact. The appeals court said it was leaving the moratorium in place because the Biden administration, which had appealed the ruling, would likely prevail in its appeal. That issue may now go before the Supreme Court. Yeah, I don't think that they're going to prevail on their appeal, but we'll see what the Supreme Court says. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a justice or anything, but I do believe that it's unconstitutional. With all the uncertainty around eviction moratoriums, landlords may not want to start eviction proceedings even though the moratorium is set to expire at the end of June. I'm advising my clients that they need to still be in a holding pattern if the sole basis for an eviction is failure to pay rent. Bonnie Y. Hockman Rothel, partner and chair of the litigation practice at Morse, Manning and Martin LLP, told Globestreet.com in an earlier interview. Yeah, and I agree with her there, okay? Now, it really depends on what your state is doing in terms of evictions. Some states are still allowing the eviction courts to be open, you to file eviction, but they are not enforcing the evictions. So basically, if a tenant is ordered evicted, then they can't actually physically be removed from the property. However, as soon as the moratorium is ended, then they can be removed from the property. In other states, you can't, even file for eviction because the courts aren't open. In some states, the courts are only open, for evictions not due to the COVID-19 pandemic. In some states, you can still sue the tenants even though the actual eviction courts are closed. So, there are options available to landlords in terms of their tenants, but what your hope is to get that tenant out of there without having to go through the eviction if your state has the eviction moratorium still in place. Rothel says that even in those jurisdictions where the court has overturned the CDC's authority to issue the moratorium, there have been some stays already put in place by appellate courts to stem a floodgate of evictions while they are reviewing the issue. Also, many jurisdictions have local ordinances preventing evictions for a period of time. You have to look at it from a state-by-state basis, Rothel says. Even if the CDC moratorium is no longer in effect, there could be a local jurisdiction that would still prevent an eviction. Yeah, there's a lot of local jurisdictions, a lot of cities, states, counties that have put eviction moratoriums in place in an attempt to protect the tenants, and a lot of them will not be removed even if the CDC moratorium is thrown out or this FHFA moratorium is thrown out. So you have to really, go on a state-by-state basis. And for now, I hope that at least we can get rid of one of these things, get rid of the CDC moratorium, find it unconstitutional, and hopefully the other dominoes will fall down once that happens.